Over the years, Disney made plenty of sequels to its animated movies, but which ones are the best and which ones are the worst? The sequels that will be featured in this video will go from "this is surprisingly pretty good" to
"Oh, no."
To this day, I still believe Moana was the last truly good original movie Disney has made. When Moana 2 came out, I was very interested to see where the story would go. Unfortunately, this is a movie about cosmic nothingness. And most importantly, it's an adventure that goes against everything built in the first movie. Remember how Moana's tribe was going against their principles by choosing to stay on an island for thousands of years, when their nature is to travel? And remember how the story ended with the tribe leaving the island to explore the ocean? Forget about that, because in the sequel they are still in Motunui. Moana's quest in the sequel is to reunite all the tribes scattered across the ocean together, because there's an evil god who separated them long ago to become more powerful. I have no clue how separating a people would strengthen a god, but whatever. In short, Moana has to find the lost island that her ancestors were seeking. When you watch this movie, you don't get the feeling of following a story with a structure. This happens, then that happens, and then that happens. Moana is my favorite modern Disney character, but unfortunately, she is now a Mary Sue. Just like episode 7 of Has Been Hotel, where Charlie had a moment of crisis not because she realized she has no idea of how to get sinners to heaven, but is just upset because things aren't going her way. There is this attempt in the movie to make it seem like Moana has failed, except it all goes well for her. Whenever she makes a mistake, she still manages to obtain something she needed for her journey. For example, they decide that they have to pass through this giant mollusk, and I don't understand why they can't just go around it. They fail and get trapped inside, but there they find Maui, whom they were looking for, so it doesn't matter if she failed to pass through it. She still found who she was looking for. The rest of the cast consists of these 3 insipid NPCs, who are useless in every way. Moana had already traveled by sea alone in the previous movie. She didn't need someone else's help. I understand they wanted to keep things fresh by introducing new characters, but these guys suck. This movie had no reason to exist and is a bad version of what was originally intended to be an episodic series, and it shows. My favorite part of this movie was the moment when in the cinema, a child sitting 2 rows behind me began screaming, "Moana, wake up! Wake up!" when she died. The original Fantasia from 1940 is one of Disney's best movies. It's not just a movie, it's a piece of art that should be seen by everyone at least once in their lives. And it's a shame not many Disney fans talk about it. If you like Fantasia, you will probably like Fantasia 2000 too. If you're one of those people who found it boring, then chances are you'll hate the sequel too. As for me, a classic music enjoyer, Fantasia 2000 is a true breath of fresh air. This movie reminded me how much I miss Disney 2D animation. I don't hate 3D animation, but traditional hand-drawn animation has something that 3D just can't replicate. My only critique of this movie is that it's too short. If we take out the credits, it's about 1 hour and 9 minutes long, and if we also take out The Sorcerer's Apprentice, which was taken from the original Fantasia and restored, then it's just 59 minutes long, barely a movie. Still, I think this one is a great movie that deserves more love, and I wish Disney still made experimental stuff like this once in a while. You know, it's not like they don't have the money. There's something I have to get off my chest. I think Frozen didn't deserve the praise it got. With that said, when they announced Frozen 2 would be an actual thing, I got curious. I think the first movie is mediocre, but there's always the possibility that the sequel would be better. So I tried to keep my prejudices to myself and went to see the movie, and this is how it went. I found it all very boring and predictable. The mysterious woman their father fell in love with is their mother? Who would have guessed? This movie also retroactively portrays Anna and Elsa's parents in a very unfavorable light. In the first movie, I always gave them the benefit of the doubt, because I assumed they truly had no idea of how to deal with their daughter's power. They were just 2 misguided parents who wanted to help their daughter, but didn't know how. Except now we know their mother was an Ortholdra, and it just doesn't make sense. Their mother knew about the elements. How the hell did she not immediately think they were the explanation for Elsa's powers? As for the songs, I didn't like a single one of them. When Elsa started singing Into the Unknown, which by the way is the title of a much better song from a much better show, I was listening to it without putting much attention to the whole thing. And when she went into the unknown, I realized this was supposed to be the song everyone was praising, and I remember thinking, really? This is the song everyone is going crazy about? I think all the Elsa fans out there probably reached inner peace by the time she sang Show Yourself. This is basically a song where a character sings about how cool they are, and you can only enjoy it if you are a hardcore Elsa fan. Basically, she spent the whole movie looking for the voice that was calling to her, and it turns out it was her own voice. Elsa is so cool and perfect that she called herself without even realizing it. She is the absolute goddess of the whole Frozen franchise. Everything that happens must be tied to her. Elsa may be the most unintentionally narcissistic character from a Disney movie. Not even Mother Gothel reaches these levels. Making everything revolve around Elsa shrinks the world instead of expanding it. And when they showed that reference to Bohemian Rhapsody with the reindeers, I felt something inside me break. My father, who was sitting next to me in the cinema, had to suppress a laugh at my face. I guess it's not all garbage. The movie is much more well animated than its predecessor, and I liked that part where Olaf dies. I wonder what will happen in Frozen 3 though. I can't wait for the FCU. I can't believe I'm about to say this, but to my surprise, Bambi 2 is a good movie. I was a hardcore Bambi fan as a child, meaning I watched both the original and the sequel plenty of times. Granted, Bambi 2 is not as good as the original, but it's miles better when compared to the majority of the stuff Disney has produced in recent years. This one isn't exactly a sequel, it's a midquel, meaning that it takes place during the original movie. More specifically, Bambi 2 covers the time Bambi spent with his father after his mother died, which is something the original movie never shows. Seeing Bambi playing with his father is very wholesome. This movie also contains this scene.
A prince does not woo who.
The animation quality is good, and the songs, while not particularly memorable, are okay. I also appreciate that they were sung in the background, just like in the original movie. The only real problem with this movie is that it often feels cliché, but it's still perfectly watchable. Although it does not quite live up to the original, it's a sweet and innocent movie. If you haven't watched it, I'd say to give it a chance. What makes Mulan 2 so frustrating is that it's almost a good movie. The premise is solid, the supporting characters work surprisingly well, and the story raises interesting ideas about duty and personal freedom. Unfortunately, this movie is full of bizarre character writing. In short, the titular character and General Shang are about to get married, when all of a sudden they are given a mission to escort 3 Chinese princesses abroad. These princesses aren't annoying characters, and their romance with Ling, Yao, and Qianpo is surprisingly well built. The relationship issues were complex and thoughtful enough to keep me engaged. Having said that, the movie has a huge problem: Mushu. This is one of the worst cases of character assassination I've ever seen. He spends the entire movie manipulating events and sabotaging Mulan's relationship with Shang, simply because he's afraid of losing his position as her guardian spirit. Even as a child, I despised this choice. In general, I found many of the characters to be extremely out of character. Shang, who is supposed to be brave, runs away from 4 small animals. It's meant to be funny, but it completely contradicts who this character is. Mulan, too, doesn't seem like herself. There are moments in which the way they react to events is completely over the top. For example, Shang's anger when he thinks Mulan is gossiping about him to the princesses. His facial expressions even become exaggerated in cartoon fashion. The sequel completely lacks the serious yet beautiful feeling of the original. And in the end, the princesses decide to marry Ling, Yao, and Qianpo. It's great that they get to choose who they will marry. But what about the political marriage to save China from the Huns? Did they forget about it? The year was 2012. It was a hot Sicilian summer evening, and I had just spent an awesome day with my aunt and her 2 friends. It was quite late, but I refused to go to bed. So I went to my grandmother's room and began checking out all the videotapes she owned. Most of them were Disney movies I had already watched. But then I find this. Now, I want you to put yourself in my shoes. You are a 10-year-old kid, and you find out one of your favorite movies ever has a sequel you had never heard of. I ran to my aunt and begged her to let me watch it. It was way past my bedtime, but my aunt is a cool aunt, and my mom wasn't there, so she let me watch it. Speaking of the movie itself, unlike Mulan 2, it has the same magic as the first Lion King. Don't get me wrong, of course the first one is better. To beat the original Lion King would be a near impossible feat. So when put in perspective, the movie really isn't that bad. The songs are well written and catchy. Zira makes a formidable foe and a worthy Disney villain. She's ruthless, fanatically loyal to Scar's legacy, and she genuinely believes she's fighting for what's right. And her song may have the darkest line ever said by a Disney villain.
And then our flag will fly against a blood-red sky.
I sympathized a lot with Kovu, and although it was a bit predictable, I didn't mind his romance with Kiara.
We'll run away together and start a pride all our own.
The plot is intriguing enough to keep you engaged, and it delivers a message about not punishing the next generations for the mistakes of the previous one, which gives the movie a surprisingly mature emotional core. If I had to find something negative, even as a child, I found it weird how Scar's family wasn't present or even mentioned in the original movie. But other than that, this is a pretty good Disney sequel, and I still cherish that late summer night when this movie kept me company. I had no interest in watching Mufasa, but two friends of mine invited me to go see it, and I didn't feel like ruining the whole experience with my unrequested negativity, so I tagged along. By the time the movie was over, the first thing that popped into my mind was this.
We've got to have money.
Really, if you look for the definition of cash grab in the dictionary, you'll find a picture of soulless CGI Mufasa staring at your soul. I struggled to find something positive in this movie. The same photorealistic CGI from The Lion King 2019? Check. A very unnecessary love triangle between Mufasa, Sarabi, and Scar? Check. Forgettable songs? Check. A bad villain? Of course we have him. The best part of this movie was when my friends and I made fun of it. Near the end, while Mufasa's mother is giving her son an emotional speech, I noticed that zebra in the background that was eating grass, minding its own business. I told this to my friend who was sitting next to me, and we just started laughing. So congratulations, Mufasa. You are a soulless cash grab, but at least you made me laugh once, although unintentionally. Cinderella 3 is a fantastic movie, and I say it with no shame. They didn't need to go this hard for a Cinderella movie, but I'm glad they did. This movie manages to do something that very few recent Disney movies pulled off for me. It's fun. Seriously, this is such a fun movie to watch. This prequel has the evil Lady Tremaine use the fairy godmother's wand to reverse the events of the first film, in order to trick Prince Charming into marrying one of her daughters, Anastasia. All the characters really come alive in this movie. Lady Tremaine is a simple yet great villain. Prince Charming is given more depth. Cinderella is an actual strong female character, and Anastasia goes through a beautiful character arc about realizing what true love really is. The movie doesn't shy away from showing her vulnerable side, and the scene where she says "he was nice to me" is heartbreaking and heartwarming at the same time. It doesn't justify the way she treated Cinderella in the original movie, but it makes her more sympathetic. And I'm glad the two girls managed to reconcile at the end. The only negative point I can think of is that Drizella is just there. Other than that, this movie is amazing. If there is a hell, I strongly believe that The Hunchback of Notre Dame 2 is the only movie they show you down there. This movie is horrible in every single aspect, especially when compared to its predecessor, which to this day remains one of Disney's best films. There is so much to say that this movie deserves an entire video dedicated to its death section, but there is no way I will give it so much of my time, so let's quickly discuss why it's at the bottom of the barrel. The animation looks horrendous and cheap. One detail that always caught my attention when I watched the original Hunchback of Notre Dame movie as a child was how nothing was ever still. Characters were always making micro-movements that made you go, wow, I'm actually watching an animated movie. Look at how scary Frollo looks when he squints his eyes at Quasimodo. Forget that in this sequel.
Take that back!
No.
Take that!
As for the characters, the old ones all turn into idiots except Phoebus, who gets wrongly accused of being racist toward the gypsies, because he rightfully deduces that the recent theft reports casually coincide with the arrival of a gypsy circus in Paris. Phoebus is one of Disney's most righteous characters. He's literally the only character from the original movie who had no prejudice toward anyone, and he risked his life to save a family he didn't even know. Even Esmeralda initially showed disgust at Quasimodo, and for some reason Esmeralda has blue eyes now. Don't ask me why. Among the new characters, we have Madeleine, an insufferable Mary Sue who can't do wrong, even when she does, just like Moana. At this point you're wondering who the villain is. To all of you who complain about Hans or the sheep from Zootopia, let me introduce you to Sarouche. In short, he wants to steal a golden bell from Notre Dame. So it's an extremely simplistic goal, but simple doesn't mean bad. Let's analyze his personality. At the beginning of the movie, there's a scene with him that caught my interest. It turns out he's not handsome. He's a bald fat guy with a belly and a toupee. I suppose this choice was made to tell us that he's superficial, because he places value only on appearance, at the expense of being authentic. The fact that he is actually ugly makes him have the same problem as Quasimodo, that is, that he doesn't accept himself as he is. So he tries to be cooler because otherwise he wouldn't be equally appreciated. It could have been an interesting dynamic, but it's never explored. If you think you've done something bad and life hasn't punished you for it, watch The Hunchback of Notre Dame 2. It will be a fitting punishment for your sins. If you don't know The Rescuers, it's a really lovely vintage Disney film about a pair of mouse detectives who rescue a sweet little girl from her abusive adoptive mother.
Adopted? What makes you think anyone would want a homely little girl like you?
I kid you not, this movie was one of my first hyperfixations. I loved the first Rescuers so much that I rewatched it in all the languages included on my DVD at some point. I watched this movie in the Hungarian dub, And believe it or not, it was the first movie I watched in its entirety in English dub. I was only 5 and my English glossary only included hello, pan, goodbye. But that didn't stop me. The sequel, The Rescuers Down Under, features the same mice, but this time they're off to rescue a little boy kidnapped by an evil outback poacher. I watched the sequel so many times as a kid that my uncle still jokes about it sometimes, asking me if I've got over my rescuers obsession. Speaking of the movie itself, the characters are all charming, the voice acting is great, and the plot is nice to follow. The villain is simple, but unlike Sarouche, he manages to be better thanks to presentation. This movie is also full of small moments I love, like the intro with this zoom on Cody's house, Joanna stealing the eggs, or the open sesame scene, which makes it almost look as if the gates of Mordor are opening, when in reality it's just the villain's garage. This movie also features one of my favorite Disney characters, Joanna the Goanna. Just look at how expressive she is. This movie's animation quality is truly jaw-dropping. And speaking of animation quality, they had no need to make the eagle do this. They just wanted to flex how good their animators were. Fun fact, this is Disney's first ever fully capped digital ink and paint feature. In conclusion, it's not as good as the original, and I won't deny that nostalgia plays a big part in how I feel about this sequel. But personally, I'll never get tired over watching this movie. The Rescuers Down Under is one of Disney's forgotten masterpieces that really deserves more praise. And I firmly believe to this day it's still Disney's best sequel ever made. But that's just my opinion. Let me know in the comments which Disney sequel is your favorite, and which one deserves to be thrown into Mount Doom. As always, thanks for watching, and have a great day.